Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it after 40, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are speaking with Judy Roseth Burrell. Judy began her career with Apple Computer in 1979 as the Director of Operations, before moving on with other big name companies in corporate America as an EVP of Sales and Operations. She left corporate America to begin her own consulting, training, and executive coaching business, the Roseth Group, which has been going strong for over 37 years. At the age of 75, Judy is still going strong, having recently completed her master's in wine and enrolled in French classes. I'm absolutely enthralled, and I can't wait to learn more. Judy, thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Could you tell us a little bit more about your story and getting to where you are today?
Sure, and thank you very much for having me, Jolie. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. Well, I should say that I also have a family. I have 3 sons, and they're in their early 50s. They all live in Southern California. My 3rd son came to us when he was 12, so he is not my natural born son, but he is in all other ways my son.
Oh,
so he was my son's best friend, and for lots of reasons, he needed a home at that time, and we were delighted to have him. So he stayed with us almost most of that time, and so now he's one of the family.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. What have you learned from that experience, bringing on someone at that time in their life and opening up your home?
Well, I think the major thing that I learned was how much doing that kind of thing can add to my life. It didn't occur to me how much it would add to my life, and it's been an amazing contribution to our family. He has been, Alan, an amazing contribution to our family, our values, fun, and having an individual come into your life a little later is a great way to sort of kind of rock things a little,
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing. It sort of lets us look at things from different angles. And because he's culturally he is from Vietnam, and he went to school in France. So he brings a lot of wonderful culture as well to our family, thus he's my French tutor.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. And so go ahead.
I was going to say this love, there's always beauty in love. I mean, love is never a bad thing. Opening your heart up to somebody it always is a beautiful thing.
I think so. If we're fortunate enough to come upon that often in life, I think we've lived a good life.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And so when the boys were a bit older, I went to work, and I had a job at this little company. It was a big company then, called Photomat, and I was an administrative assistant. And I know. And albeit I certainly did my job to the man that I reported to his satisfaction, it really wasn't my cup of tea. Mm-hmm. I kept contributing to meetings and getting in trouble for that.
Are you serious? Because you were contributing?
Mm-hmm. At the time, a secretary administrative assistant at that time, which was in the mid 70s, was not, speaking up if you weren't part of the management team, which were almost typically all men, that was not something that was encouraged or really welcomed. At least my experience. That was my experience. Now, that may not have been true elsewhere. And I was really lucky. I had a great boss.
Yeah. How did you deal with that? I mean, when you had those things that you felt like you needed to say and you were feeling like you had to keep it in.
I said them.
Good for you. I love what you did during a time when it wasn't very easy.
I did. And because I really felt that I could contribute. And so I did have a conversation with my boss after the second time I contributed. And he said that he thought that perhaps I should maybe contribute less. And I said, perhaps I could be promoted to a different level, and that way I could contribute appropriately. And he agreed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Speak what you need. Speak who you are. Make it happen. I love it. And that's not easy during that time. I just want to applaud you for it.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. I know I'm not alone. There were many of us that did that and continue to, hopefully.
And we're grateful for it. And every step of the way, all those strong women.
Right. That's exactly right. And so and working there, I had had a couple of women with whom I was friends, that was my colleagues, and I'd heard about this little company called Apple, and it was this new thing, this personal computer. And I thought, I think that sounds like that will go far. I'd like some stock in that company. Yeah. So I asked, how do you get stock in the company? She said, you have to work because they give it away. It's penny stock. And I said, well, that's what I'll do. It happened that her fiance worked at Apple. So I had an opportunity to interview, and I was able to, gave me the job. And so I started with Apple in 1979, where there were card tables and cards hanging from the ceiling, and wow. Steve Jobs and Wozniak and Michael Dell and all these people were just running around in flip-flops and T-shirts, And I was always more the matriarch because I was probably all of maybe 30 at the time. It was an absolute delight to work there. It was one of my favorite places to be. Oh. And one of the reasons is because of the culture that came out of Apple's new beginning.
How was it?
Well, first of all, everybody celebrated important things that meant something. We all had fun. And we all worked together because none of us all of our jobs were the roles were fairly ethereal. I mean, we were startup, we were in a horse race with IBM, and Steve Jobs came to movie theaters. We were on a bus and went to movie theaters every Friday after they rolled out wash buckets of wine, beer, gifts, crystal apples, badges, buttons, all of those things. And we did that every Friday. And when we came to the movie theater, Steve rented all the movie theaters around the United States. Oh, wow. And he had major artists, as you know, the Pointer Sisters, Bob Dylan, and they would rewrite these songs for Apple. Oh, and so it was just amazing. So we were in a movie theater. It was all for us every Friday. And Steve spoke with us. And he spoke with all of us. And he asked us to become evangelists of Apple. And we were only too happy to do that. So when you worked there, you were given a loan to own. So every time a new computer came out, you got one. And within a year, you owned it. So long story short, when John Sculley came on board, when he joined Apple, he decentralized everything. And I was in Irvine at one of the logistical centers. I was fortunate enough to ride the wave of Apple and become their first woman warehouse manager.
Awesome.
Yes. And I loved managing a warehouse. I didn't think I would, but I really did. So I had service logistics, I had the warehouse, I had technical repair, and I also had technical support. So that was basically then they created a job called Director of Operations, and that's what I did. But I did start there as an administrative assistant.
Oh, wow. And you just moved your way up. What helped you move your way up? Because, again, I would imagine you said you were the first woman warehouse manager. So clearly you were doing something right. What were you doing?
Well, I did whatever there was to be done, and I asked for more. So the first man that I worked for was not very, he was not very interpersonal. And so he wasn't open to really doing a lot of reviews and talking with people, nurturing. So I said, well, I'll write the reviews. You tell me what you want to say. I'll write them for you. Or, I can do I could do this if you like. And as I did these things, he said, you're pretty good at that. Why don't you keep doing that? And so I think I just said yes and did it because I wanted to learn. because I was given an opportunity to take that risk, because Apple was not afraid to have their people make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I learned that early on. Make mistakes, learn from them. That's how we grow.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? Oh, having a company that is operating on that level, that is how they're going to have such great innovation, because you're not afraid. When you have people afraid, it just shuts everything down. It shuts all that creativity down.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I never thought about it as far as, thinking about Apple and what Apple's doing. But yes, this all makes complete sense. And now what did you learn from that time? Because it was a really unique experience. So when you reflect on those years, what's your big takeaway?
Well, there are two things. One is, we don't know what our roadblocks are unless someone helps us become aware. So I had someone that I worked for that held me whole and competent and made me very aware of a huge roadblock I had and helped me overcome it. So that would be one. I think the other would be taking calculated risks and bringing people together on a consistent basis and connecting with them through passion and the experience that they're having.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much power in that, right?
Yeah. I think there's a tremendous power, such that when John Scully closed down all three of the distribution centers, at the time we had 480 people. Not one single one of those people left until the day we closed our doors.
Wow.
We were able to retain them all. That
says a lot. As a recruiter, I can say that that's not something that happened.
That's right. It does not happen. And we did a lot to make that happen. And we can't take I couldn't take all the credit. No one could. It was the culture that Steve Jobs had created that did it. And I said, when I left Apple, that I would bring that culture with me everywhere I went.
And you did so.
I did.
That's fantastic.
To the best of my ability. Yeah.
So, when you went on to some other big companies, when you went on to these companies, did you feel like did you change things up a little bit? Did you kind of bring a new flavor? How did you do that? Because that's a big deal in some big companies like that.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, happily, the next company that I went to, Micro D, was just evolving into becoming a major distributor, which is now Ingram Micro.
Yeah.
And I had met the only woman regional vice president I'd ever met at Apple. Her name was Carol. And I called her 9 times because I wanted to become an executive, a female executive. That was what I wanted. And that's what she was. And so I called her 9 times. Of course, I spaced it out and did different ways of doing it.
Yes.
But she called me back and she gave me an interview and said, I have a gentleman that I want you to work for. And I think you could be a big help to the company. And I said, wonderful. So when I started there, it was evolving. And I think most of the companies that I worked for were in a very big transitional mode. And so there was some richness and opportunity in that. Building a team from a different perspective was a little easier to do in that environment. And I think because I had sales, I always had at least 40% of the company in personnel. So that in building teams, I brought the culture in. And so it was a little easier because I had a larger percentage of people. And I remember with Ingram, when Micro D, when I first went there, I walked into my region and these people that I had, the personnel, they were playing cards, baseball. They were not engaged in their work.
Yeah.
And so I cut a deal with them as individuals and said, I met with each of them one-on-one and said, I'll help you get where you want to go if you give me 100% while you're getting there. That was Apple. And they did, and they all stayed. So I think engaging individuals and then creating a team, and there were lots of ways that I did that. I think that's a way that you can begin to influence a culture, especially when you have a customer-centric company.
Yes, that's wonderful. I love that. Now, I want to go back really quick, just so I understand, when the woman executive that you called 9 times, you were calling her to get the job?
I wanted a job where she was working.
I love this. And that's how you got the job, because you kept calling. I love this.
Well,
because persistence works. It works when you know what you want.
Yes.
When you know what you want and you just keep going after it, it works. I love that.
Every time. And looking at your questions, 2 or 3 of those things popped up over and over again, which was vision, clarity, knowing what you want, and then persevering with kindness in a gentle or assertive way, certainly with some strategy in mind as to how you're going about it. Right?
Exactly. A bull in a china shop, not going to work. Not going to work.
No. And when I was able to interview with this gentleman, he said, I can't hire you because you only know Apple. You don't know anything about which was then DOS. And I said, well, if I can come back and answer any question you have on DOS, will you give me the job? He said, sure. So I called 2 colleagues of mine that were wonderful people, Bill Jose and Dirk Eastman, big names then in the industry. I said, could I help me? Can you help me? And they said, sure. They gave me all these books. So I rented my neighbor's cabin for a week, and I went up and I read every one of them. I gave myself tests. And then I sent a telegram, because then you sent telegrams in the early 80s to this gentleman and asked his assistant to put it in front of him. So I said, I believe I'm ready to answer any questions about DOS. So I did, and he gave me the job.
That's fantastic. I didn't have the same level, but I had something similar in getting my first recruiting job. I was interviewing, and they did recruiting for printed circuit boards and contract electronic manufacturing. And I was like, I don't really know what that is. I'll come back tomorrow and I will tell you.
And you did.
And I did. I mean, of course, I didn't go in depth with technical knowledge, but I came back. I knew about the industry, and I knew what were the players, and I knew how to talk about it. And that's how I got my job.
You see, that's why you related so much to what I was saying earlier, isn't it? Because you know to do it, and especially in your profession, now your chosen profession obviously bodes well for you.
Well, these things, they make a big difference. And when people adopt these types of little habits, it can make a huge difference in their career.
Yes, absolutely.
So now tell me about the transition out of corporate America. What brought that on for you, and how did you do it?
After 15 years as an executive in corporate America, I had decided when I was about 38 that when I was 45, I was leaving corporate America.
Okay, interesting. Why? Yeah, because you knew before. So
yes, the reason was because I knew that I was going to burn out. I had 2,000 people that I was responsible for. I was in the air 5 days out of 7 for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And negotiating, doing 2 states in a day. It was a heavy, fast-paced, not that I would recommend this to anyone. And that was the job. I was the director of international major accounts, and I had the sales organization as well as pricing and customer service and technical support. So I had a lot of responsibility. Thankfully, I was able to develop an amazing team. So that's what allowed me to do it. However, I could see that was not going to be something that I was going to want to do beyond a certain point.
Smart.
So I kind of put a stake in the ground and said, 45, I'm going to become a consultant. That was my goal. Yeah.
I love that you're thinking ahead so much and really preparing and planning. That's just incredibly smart, and not enough people are doing that.
And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes time, as we know, to become proactive when you're in the midst of so much work and activity.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that right? Yeah. Oh, yes. And I think that's helped. I think that's the other thought I had about that was, as I age, I want to do something where wisdom and age is more valuable, not less.
Right.
And executive coaching felt like wisdom, haven't, hopefully so I've acquired some, and experience was a very marketable thing, no matter how old you were.
Mm-hmm.
If you continued to stay current, kept that fire in your belly,
Mm-hmm.
and knew what you wanted, and made the changes you needed to make so you will continue to be on the path of what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you think, I mean, what do you feel has contributed to your overall success later in life to keep that fire going and continue that passion? Because a lot of times that can fall off. So what has helped?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a combination of things. I've been creating my own vision for myself and my life for almost 28 years. And I do it every year in a real way for me. And I create a vision board.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it sounds like a small thing, and it can be a very powerful thing, as you probably know. And I started doing it with 4 or 5 bottles of wine, some pizza, and about 4 or 5 other women that were interested in doing this in my living room. And I have it now. I'm looking at it right now. It's on my monitor. It's scrolling.
I'm looking at mine right here. It's on my wall.
Is it?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well done. And so you know the experience of that. The ability to clearly see, and I think clearly is really important. The clarity of what you want, I think, is first and foremost what I've always tried to keep in mind, and then to envision it in such a way that I can feel that I believe that this is something that will be in my life. And I know that sounds a little esoteric, however, it has worked for me all these years. And I think once I believe that, and be careful what you ask for, right? Once I believe that, and it's clear, and I have the vision, how I get there shows itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in Carpe Diem, seize the day, seize the opportunity, being ready to take that opportunity. I think one of my favorite movies is Miracle, right? It's the 13th Olympic hockey championship.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach, and of course, USA won, and it was a miracle because they were such underdogs. And I remember the coach said, great moments come from great opportunities. Mm. And I think that a lot of what has helped me through looking at the years is looking at what I want, who I am, what is the clarity around it, and how do I want to grow? So learning, continuing to read, continuing to go to courses. I mean, I loved wine, so I decided I took 30 years of working and studying wine in addition to what I was doing, because I wanted, when I was at this age, to be able to have a wine business for fun, where I could do workshops, blind tastings, wine seminars. And that meant I needed to get some credentials. I just followed that passion and kept doing one thing after another in the way of education. I think the same is true with languages. The same is true with certifications. I said, how many certifications do I need, and how do I get them, and which ones do I really want to do? So I think ongoing education, looking at what you want to do, taking it a step at a time and doing it, just doing it, not to worry whether or not it completes, but just take the steps so you get to the end of the vision.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
I think that's part of it. I think being willing to change, being open to change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have to change. I mean, even if you're not changing, there's like the not changing is almost change, because everything is changing around you. So,
right.
So there is no static, if you will. It's almost like, I don't want to say going backwards, but
it's true.
So changing and being available to move forward in that change can make a huge, huge difference in that life.
I think so.
letting go of the
And
resistance.
I would add one more thing, if I may, Jolie,
Yeah.
and that's that I think when you feel that fire in your belly going away, when you lose that passion, move on to what makes you excited. Move on to what makes you want to get up in the morning and do it. And I think when I looked at corporate America, I could feel that leaving me. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, no, if I continue to work in this environment without that, especially in a sales environment, I will program myself for failure.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be very unhappy. And that, and that's what we don't want. We want people out of their stuck, out of their unhappy, out of their malaise, if you will.
And that's what you do for them in your profession. Yeah. You help them.
So speaking of keeping your passion alive, you have kept this company going for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can share? Because look, it's not easy to build a coaching practice. It's hard to build a coaching practice. Is there anything that you found helped contribute to your overall success through these years?
I think one of the major contributors has been colleagues and mentors, especially in coaching, because when I decided to add coaching to my offering about 20 years ago, that was not something people believed in. It was, well, no one's going to pay you for that, or no one's going to take you seriously. And I found a group of people, they were professional coaches and mentor association members, and they were amazing coaches. And they still remain to be some of the best coaches I've ever met. And I joined the group and participated in it, went to universities to sit on advisory boards to create curriculum for universities. I think that being a part of hopefully supporting coaching as a profession, where of course there are many segments of the coaching profession. I chose executive coaching for obvious reasons, but I think that was a very big part of me keeping that flame going and really believing, because there's such an entrepreneur in me, that believing that I really believed in coaching and that it's effective and it's meaningful. So I think that piece of it was really important to me. I think the other piece of it is I re-engineered my firm about every 3.5 years.
Ooh, interesting.
I did, because I could see, and I worked when I with a great majority of my clients are technology clients. Mm-hmm. And so that window is short. Things change quickly, as you know, of course. And so I, as soon as I got to a point where I was feeling good about where the markets were, what I was offering, how I did it, I thought, the next 1.5 years, I need to start looking at what I want to do in addition to, differently, right? Yeah. And so I started kind of milestoning it and evolving into different areas of challenge. Mm. One of my first ones was M&A work, mm-hmm. because I headed up the merger and acquisition team for Ingram when we purchased another entity, and that was arduous.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, what was that like for you? Because that's big things that are happening in there.
Very big things. And,
yes.
And of course, you're also doing, the old J curve. You're also doing the position that you have. I think that was one of the most challenging things I've ever done. It was immensely challenging, in that you had so many people whose lives and their livelihood was up in the air all the time. And also you had tons of systems, procedures, processes, and most importantly, I think, how do you communicate to each and every one of these people on a consistent basis so that fear doesn't run rampant? Right. So I think it had to do with communication structures first and foremost, personalizing those as much as possible, bringing people who are affected into the decision-making process immediately. So that when I say decision-making process, into whatever place they could contribute to the decision, so that it wasn't them waiting for the shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. An example might be when we first decided to do it, I had all the executives fly in to Dallas, and we each presented our division And so each of us had an opportunity to talk about how good we were, what we did, and at least we felt we had some control over what the decision might be.
Yeah.
And in this case, I happened to prevail on that merger. However, I had two colleagues, and I was lucky enough to have them both join my organization. And so I think that if in doing it in that fashion, not only does everybody know more about what's going on, but you also have the best of the best if you're willing to open your mind and not be afraid. And the more people know about what's happening, the more they can tell you what they can contribute, and the easier it is for everyone to make the decision and not have it be a complete surprise. And I hope that helps, but that's, yeah.
Isn't that true for life in general?
Oh, gosh. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And one of the things I find is that so many entities struggle with consistent communication in their businesses. How important is it? And I found it to be incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. As a recruiter, I can say it makes a big difference in keeping those employees around. That's for sure.
I'll bet it does. I'm sure you see that every day. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I went into merger and acquisition work in my consulting work, and took on a really big one. It was 4 companies, integrating 4 companies into one in 22 months. And I did the integration, and one of my colleagues did the branding and marketing. And that was significantly challenging and really gratifying at the end of 22 months when it was one company.
Well, that's a long time to be working on something. So the fruition of anything, and I mean, that's a really big deal too. So to be able to do that successfully has got to feel really good.
That was great.
Which kind of leads me, I'm curious, what is your personal definition of success? And based on that, what do you think is key to having continued success throughout life?
Yeah. I believe, for me personally, success in my life is having a positive impact on others, and most particularly others that are willing to pay it forward. Yeah. I think that's quintessentially the key to me. If I've done that in some way in my life, I've led a successful life. And the key, I think a lot of it is being comfortable in your own skin and showing up wherever you are that way. I think the other piece of it is always looking for the next challenge, the next opportunity in life, and growing. I think exploring yourself, exploring what you want to do, and asking yourself, I mean, 4 years ago, I thought, what do I want to do now? Do I still want to do this?
Yeah.
And I took some time and did some work on that, because I thought, this is a new part of my life at this age. I'm not at all familiar with this. I'm kind of caught at a loss. I think what I want to do is become a little bit familiar with aging, and what is that? And how do I feel about that? And what do I want to do with that? And when I decided to leave corporate America, I thought, well, when I'm 45, I'm going to leave. And it became quite complicated when I attempted to leave. Not important to tell the story, but it was quite complicated within the politics of my company. So I did leave, and I had always wanted my whole life to go to Africa. And my uncle, who I was very close to, was in Harare, Zimbabwe, and he was with the Peace Corps. So he was always in some fabulous country. And he wrote me and he said, hey, I'm in Harare, Zimbabwe, and I know one of your dreams has always been to go to Africa. Hey, want to come? And I thought about it and I went, I think I do. And so I thought, well, this will be perfect. I'll leave my job and then I'll go to Africa. So I wrote him back and said, yes, I'd like to. Then I was terrified because I thought, do I really want to do this? But long story short, I did. So I went over there I think I was there for 6 to 8 months with my uncle and my aunt in Harare, Zimbabwe. And while I was there, it gave me an opportunity to look at that period of time at 45 and say, I want to be a consultant, but what do I need to do that? Because I've had a lot of position power. I wonder if I have personal power. And And I thought, I'm not sure I do. I need personal power. I had the decision makers because I negotiated with them for 7 years. So I knew I had a network that was great. And I thought, but would they pick up the phone if I call? Or did they pick up the phone because I was the EVP when I called? And I didn't know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. So when my uncle offered this to me, I thought, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to do this. So I went to Europe for a month or two by myself. And then I thought, now I'm going to come back and then I'm going to go to Africa. So I did. And I spent all those months with nothing but the ability to be introspective, to meet these wonderful people, to spend time in environments I'd never been in, to experience what it's like to be a woman in Africa, to be in the bushveld with all these fabulous animals quietly and maybe in Shawa after a hike. Different. It was such a different environment. And I fell in love with Africa. So my second choice for your movie besides Miracle was Out of Africa.
Out of Africa.
And of course the character, right? Uh-huh. And the metamorphosis that she went through. And I wouldn't compare mine to hers, all because we're all unique. It clearly was a metamorphosis. And I've been back to Africa twice since then, to South Africa, for several months at a time. And I was actually offered a job over there when I was 52. And I decided not to do it. I was going to put down some roots here. So I think that exploring oneself is a great, and it's not a guard against ageism, because I don't know that there are guards against it. I think it helps us see that every point in our lives can be a new adventure. Yes. And I find myself invigorated by new things and also very frightened by them.
Right. Well, and that's important to acknowledge. It is scary. New things are scary. It's anything unfamiliar is scary, but it's also exciting too. There's the flip side of every emotion.
That's right. You sort of feel the fear and do it anyway,
Yes, no, that's the thing. Feel the fear and do it. As long as it's not a safety issue. I always say, as long as it's not a safety issue, step into the fear, step into it. That's where the magic happens. Always.
That's right.
It's so interesting. I'm curious because this is what a unique experience to have been able to have done that, to been able to travel alone in Europe, go to Africa, spend months there, absorbing the culture and meeting these interesting people. How did that benefit your life? I mean, how does that continue to contribute to your life to this day?
Well, I think it changed me remarkably. I think I began to question the kinds of things that I thought I knew. And so I think one of the things that it's caused me that I've learned for me is that questioning is a good thing. Asking questions about, so when I'm 70, well, this is what people at 70 do. Well, is that what I want to do? So I think it sort of helped me know that asking questions is a little scary because you don't know what your answer is going to be. And perhaps will have to work through some things once you get the answers. But once you get through that process, and as you go through it, all new doors open. And that's where that fire continues to burn, that positive fire, that passion. So I think it was that. I think the other piece of it was it touched on a new level of spirituality for me. In that, I changed a lot, almost all of what I saw as something that was contributing to my life in a spiritual way, and adopted almost a Buddhist-like sort of reverence about life. So I think that created the impetus in me to become the best possible master coach I could become, because I think that stirring of that essence is what I needed to move into something that was completely different than position power. Then I had the empowerment within myself. So I think that was how that changed me.
That's powerful when you feel that internally, huh? That shift internally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can feel the power drop when you lose it.
Yeah, you can.
It's gone. It's like, oh, what happened there? There's a search for that again. That's for sure. And I've lost it. I have.
I'm curious because you know what? A lot of people have lost it. What helped you find it back?
I think knowing what my purpose is in life, I think that's key. And when I lost track of that, I found when I lost track of it over the years, I threw myself into environments where I was around other women, other people, and where I could kind of talk with them and spend some time alone and really push through, what I needed to come to what my purpose was. And sometimes that took a while. And I remember being at this, we called ourselves the Remarkable Women when we were on this retreat in Idlewild, about 9 of us. And the second time I went on the retreat, I've known these women for years. I still see them all as much as I can. And I was really angry. I had an attitude driving up, and 3 of them said, "Judy, this isn't like you. You don't have an attitude normally, And I went, well, I have one now. And I'm sticking with it. So I got there, and I of course, didn't want to diminish their time there. And I was really upset. And so the fellow who's conducting the meeting, the gentleman, said, "Judy, how are you doing?" And I said, I'm really just angry, and I'm really angry with myself. I can't figure this out. I'm frustrated. And we talked a little bit about that, and I kind of let that just sit. And about 3 days later, I got it, and I went, "I've got it," and that's what I needed to get there. Mm-hmm. And so I figured it out, and it's been my purpose now since then. And it hasn't changed that I'm aware of. And I keep looking to see if it has changed, but it hasn't so far.
When you were saying that, it actually helped shift something inside of me. I just had this epiphany a little bit about my own self, if you will, like just realizing that when I've lost my own personal power, that there were times of focusing on worrying about what other people wanted, and taking that as more important than what I wanted and my purpose. And that can just make all the difference right there, is shifting that focus right back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a perspective change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to have a perspective change when you're in the same perspective, because that's where you are physically. When I first started coaching, when I find someone that was having difficulty changing perspective, it was my opinion, I said, "You know what, I'd like you to do 10 different things in the next 2 weeks. And I'd like you to tell me a story about them." This just as a very beginning thing. Mm-hmm. "Oh, I can't do 10 different things in 2 weeks. Can you do 5? I can do 5. Wear a different tie, drive to work a different way. Can you do 10 of those? I can." And inevitably, that individual discovered so much about what they haven't been doing and what they wanted to. You can make up anything. It doesn't matter. And it's to change your perspective that helps so much for me.
Oh yeah. It just really makes it very powerful to get those shifts. I'm curious because we've talked a lot about, you've done so many great things and we've talked a lot about them. What about a great challenge or a difficulty, a big mistake or something? What did you struggle with? How did you overcome it? And what did you learn from
Well, it's interesting because I think the biggest challenge of my life, I think, was when I was an agoraphobic.
Oh my goodness. That's a big challenge.
It was huge. And I was very young. I was about 28, and it just came upon me one day. And it was a very severe agoraphobia.
So you didn't have a big catalyst that happened. It just kind of snuck up on you a little bit.
I actually did. I had a child who required 6 or 7, many different surgeries, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy, and it all worked out beautifully. And we were young, and then I had another little one. They were a year apart, and we had financial kinds of issues, and because of all the medical issues. So I think it was nothing to do with my children whatsoever. They're wonderful children. It just had to do with the situation.
Stressful.
That was
scary. Yeah, it's really scary.
And I was young, and so it was one of those things where I really couldn't participate in anything. No driving, no out, no going anywhere, none of that. And I saw a man named David Ireland for 3.5 years. He was and I had very little finances. And he said, well, what can you pay? And I said, I could pay $10 a week. He goes, that's fine. He was a quadriplegic and he was a psychologist. And he took me through 3.5 years of this, helping work with me on this. And I got through it because of him. And so what I learned from that is that whatever I'm afraid of, I need to face and do. It's been a lot of years since I've had it, but it was probably the most difficult thing I've ever been through.
What helped you overcome that? That's a big deal. I mean, that's a really big deal.
Yeah. I really believe it was facing the issues that I needed to face. When I wasn't facing them, I wasn't moving forward at all. And some of them were awfully frightening. I mean, it was, well, they put you in the hospital for a long periods of time. Then when they were doing tests, it was like 9 days of tests to see if my heart was bad. And I didn't want to hear that news or confronting people I didn't like confronting or, facing things or making myself go into a store when I could barely move.
Yeah.
And how do I do that? So I think it was moving through with support and care and kindness and capability and competency. So having a guide, a professional, and tons of support from family and friends. I am a very lucky woman. I have a wonderful support system and a great women's network.
Isn't that amazing? It makes all the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Support people make the world go round. That's
definitely
there's a reason there's a saying.
The people that make all these wise commentaries, they were wise.
Yeah. And getting help, man, we just need to ask for help. We need to get that help. We all need help. It's smart. It's brilliant to ask for help. That's what I like to say. Too many people shut themselves down. I shut myself down. I shut myself down for the majority of my life and only really learned this important lesson in the past few years. And it's a life-changing one. So,
and it's never easy. And it's never gotten easier for me to ask.
Yeah. But you have to, when you need help, you've got to ask.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because you've had all of these successes. Is there any habits or anything you've adopted in your life that has helped you reach what you wanted in life?
I really think that many of the things we've talked about, and I think for the most part, it's just clarity of knowing what I want, and I think, choice is a big thing and we can choose. And if we don't choose, it's going to happen to us. If we don't know what we want, then we don't know what we're choosing and why we're choosing it. And then it still happens to us. So I think that knowing what I want, mm-hmm. And how do you get there? There's work to that, right? It's having your goals, monitoring your goals, learning, reading, growing, getting help when you need it, mentors, extra classes, studying, talking to people, learning about things, meeting with you and say, how are you writing this book? I may want to write a book one day. I really don't think there's anything unique about what I've done. I think it's the consistency with which I've done it.
I really like that. I really like that. So, well, wrapping up, a couple of things. I'm curious because you've had these executive roles, you've led organizations, you worked with cultures, you are an executive trainer. Is there any advice you would give someone who is currently trying to move up their own corporate ladder and find their own success in corporate America?
In corporate America.
Yeah.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think that choose the culture you want to be in.
Ooh.
And know you're a match. Well, I'm telling you, this.
That's a big one. This is important. The people need to listen to that. Yes.
Yeah. I think that if your values match the company you're in, you are halfway there. Mm. If they don't, it's a very difficult road.
Yeah.
So I think finding a way to understand the values of the company and learn and ask. I have informational interviews with people like you and me and people that we know. What's it really like to be in corporate America? Mm-hmm. What's it really like if you're wanting to be an executive? I mean, I coach executives and a lot of executives that I've coached over the years is that I didn't think it was going to be like this. And knowing what your boundaries are when you get there, so that if there is something happening that it doesn't work for you, it isn't going to stop, because that's the culture. So I think as much as you can, right?
Yes.
Know the culture, know the values, and then look to see if you're a match. And first understand, what is it like to be an executive? What is it really like? And how politically savvy are we? Right? Because bottom line, unless it's changed, and I haven't found it to be true, politics is probably the number one thing that will cause us concern and agita. And so I don't know a lot of apolitical corporations. And I haven't met many people in them, but and then nonprofits as different. And a nonprofit, be sure that you are a person who can take consensus and that you're patient with that and willing to do that. I am not good at that. That is not my strength. And a third of my portfolio has always been nonprofits. I would love to run one day, but it's just not my skill set. I know. So I think knowing what you want. And then I also think, how long do you want to be there? Because what is your plan long term? Because being in a corporate environment your whole career I think it requires change from my perspective, depending on what you're looking for. But that not often is it helpful to stay with a company for 30 years and 20 years anymore. I don't know how easy it is to grow, increase your opportunity level. It may be for some. I know a couple that it is. But I think just evaluating, how long do you want to be there? And what would be the point in which you would consider moving to something different? What's your growth step? What are your steps, milestones of growth?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. It's really good advice. And absolutely on point of what's important for them to be looking for.
That means a lot coming from you. Yeah.
So just wrapping up, if people want to find you, are you taking on new people for your coaching?
I am. I coach most particularly CEOs and C-level execs. So yes, I absolutely am.
Right. So any C-level people who are looking for you, we'll have in the show notes your website. But if you want to share verbally with people, where can they find information about you?
Yeah, you can find information about me on the Roseth Burrell Group.com, Roseth Burrell, Burrell group.com. And my website, my bio is on there, our services, testimonials, clients. So it kind of gives you an overall view of what we do.
Perfect. And I'll have that too, as well as your profile. But before we go, last question. I'm curious. Yeah. What are you sure of in life?
Oh, I love that question. I am sure of my ability to manage and flourish through whatever comes my way.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's an important one to know too. Feel deep down in your bones.
Yeah, in your bones.
Thank you, Judy. This has been wonderful. I so appreciate your time.
Thank you, Julie. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you so much. You're a wonderful interviewer.
Thank you. I loved talking with Judy, the first woman manager in the Apple Corporation, one of the pioneers of women in executive corporate America. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you to Judy and to all of the women who have come before that have helped pave the way for privileges that women are now lucky enough to take for granted. As Judy shared, she would contribute to her work meetings and then get in trouble. It was not her place to speak up. And I absolutely love the story she shared about when Judy's boss went to talk with her about how she needs to speak up less because it was not her place. Now, instead of agreeing or keeping silent and accepting, Judy suggested that she be promoted so that she would be in the right space to allow her to speak up. She asked. She advocated for herself. And he agreed. Kudos to him too. Judy did not accept an unfair evaluation or situation to continue. Have you ever accepted someone else's dismissal or negative opinion of you? I know I have. Have you ever been in an unfair situation and did nothing about it? What would have happened if you did? I mean, maybe nothing, but maybe something. Speak what you need. Speak who you are. I know that it's not easy, but it's certainly much easier now than it was back then. And if you don't speak up, if you do not ask, you will not get what you need. You will not get to fully embody who you are and what is happening inside. Because Judy spoke up, she became the first woman manager in Apple, leading to an upward corporate trajectory and in executive roles within leading tech companies. Now, because she continued to speak up, she became an executive with Ingram Micro. Through her stories, Judy gave great advice for career success. Here are some of the takeaways that I thought were worth mentioning once more. Do what needs to be done, and then ask for more. Notice the things that your boss doesn't like to do, and then offer to do them. If you start doing the responsibilities of the role above you, then your boss will easily be able to see you in that role when it comes time for that promotion. Whenever that opening does pop up, you will be the first person they think of because you've been encompassing the role. First, be what you want to become. Now, you also want to make sure you're working for an organization that is not afraid for their people to make mistakes. Stifling organizations will not allow you to flourish. Do not be afraid to make mistakes yourself. This is where we learn. This is where innovation happens. Success grows from the learnings of failure. Be persistent. When you know what you want, keep going after it. Respectfully, until you get it. Persistence pays. Period. Without persistence, Judy would not have gotten that interview with Instant Micro. Now, for building a strong team or even a strong family, be clear on your vision. And then get clear on their vision. Pay attention. Support their vision, and they will in turn support yours. And be transparent. The more people know about what is happening, the more they will be able to contribute. Bring people together, connect with them through passion and through shared experience. Then, within Judy's story, she taught the importance of clarity. Knowing what it is that you want. Looking at your life in the future and knowing what you want it to look like. And then figuring out how to get there. Knowing what you want is the key. When was the last time you checked in with yourself about your wants? Not the wants of your kids, not the wants of your significant other, not the wants of your family or the wants of your friends, but just your pure, personal desires. If you could have everything go perfectly in the next 3 to 5 years, what would your life look like? Do you know? So many don't. They have been reacting to what life brings them for so long that they have forgotten to ask themselves that very important question. Or they've been told what they want for so long by others that they never realize they get to ask themselves that question. Or they have been so consumed with fulfilling base needs that they have felt that they did not have the luxury to think about the wants. But that's not the way. Building your best, most authentic, fulfilling, and successful life, it all begins with the wants. You must get in touch with yourself and get a clear vision on where it is that you want to go. If you have not done that in some time, I suggest spending some time with yourself and thinking about that tonight or this week. Once you have clarity, write it down and then make a plan. This is what Judy did. She knew she wanted to be situated in a career where her wisdom would be more valuable as she aged, not less. So she made her plan, and she expertly positioned herself as an executive coach, having successfully run her own business now for over 33 years. And she is absolutely rocking her 70s. I love it. I am here for it. So what are some of Judy's secrets to her success? Be open to change. When you feel the fire going away, when you lose that passion you once had with something, move on. Move on to what makes you excited. Move on to what is firing you up. Follow that passion. And connect with other like-minded individuals also interested in the areas that you want to grow. Very important. Embrace continuous learning. I love that Judy just completed a master's in her 70s, setting herself up for another career exploration. Exploring oneself is a great guard against ageism. Every point in our lives can be a new adventure. Yes, new chapters can be scary, but they can also be exciting. The feeling is exactly the same. It is all in the choice you make to define it. Fear comes from thinking that things will go wrong in the future. Excitement comes from thinking that things will go well in the future. Same feeling, different story. But you get to choose the story you tell yourself. So do not run from the fear, face it, meet it head on with kindness and understanding. And then you consciously choose the different story. You close your eyes. You imagine the very best case scenario happening. You tell yourself the greatest possible story, and you change your feeling to one of excitement. Again, as long as it's not a safety issue, step into that fear. Learning new things and new chapters in life, this is where we grow. Finally, when you feel stuck, when you feel like you've lost your way, find your purpose to bring your power back. When you lose track of your own personal purpose and you become encumbered with others, their needs, their purpose, it is easy to lose your drive and passion. So that is my wish for us all, that you find the clarity of purpose in your life now, and that you stay in touch with yourself through all the decades of your life, continuously honoring the light's mission within you. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Please subscribe and follow us on all streaming services, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Player FM. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Blood Podcast. I would love your help in spreading these stories and important messages. Please give us a like and share with a friend. Your help is greatly appreciated. I hope you make today a most fulfilling day.